Hey guys, so I got sent some hair from a company called Sophia Hair on Aliexpress. They sent me 4 bundles of their Brazilian body wave in the lengths 2 22s, a 20, and an 18, and they also sent me a 16-inch closure. Here's all of the bundles together. The bundles are like a really nice size, so that's cool. And the closure is really big too. I like the fact that it has a lot of space on the edge to sew with. I doubt that I'm going to use it for this install, but I'm pretty sure I'll save it for another one. I did notice that the hair kind of has like a residue on it, so I would suggest co-washing before you install. So before we start making our wig, we're going to need some thread. We're going to need a needle, and the needles come in more than one size. I prefer the bigger ones because they're a lot easier to use than the smaller ones. You're obviously going to need some scissors to cut the thread, a weaving cap. I'm using one that I got from Sally's for like $4. It has like the adjustable straps on the back. And you're going to need a styrofoam head and some push pins. I don't have any of those, so I'm using nails. So yeah, that's all you're going to need to start. So next you want to take like a white pencil and mark out where you want your leave out to be and where you want your part to be. Since mine's a deep side part, I did mine deep on the side. If you're not used to making your own U parts yet, it's better to do this on your head, but since I've made enough, I kind of know where I want my stuff to be. And don't mind my no makeup face, I know I look cray, so yes, moving on. Alright, so this is the part where those push pins, or in my case nails, come into play. You're going to put them on all 4 corners of your U part, of your wig cap, so that your wig cap doesn't slide around while you're trying to sew the tracks on. Okay, so now that your wig cap is secure, you're going to take your needle and you're going to pierce it through the end of your first track. This is the only part that you're going to stick your needle through the track. I just like to do this because it makes it like more secure. And you're just going to take it and stick it through the bottom of your wig cap, and it'll hold it in place like super easy, and it'll make it a lot easier to sew. So now you're just going to take the track and then run it across the bottom and then use a push pin to hold it in place. This makes it a lot easier to sew. So when I sew the hair, I like to put the needle like underneath the track and then put the thread over the needle to kind of form a knot. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but yeah, you can see me doing it. And so you're just going to sew all the way across the track until you get to the push pin. So now it's time to flip your track over and start sewing again. So you're just going to take it, flip it over, maybe put it like a ½ inch above the track that you already sewed, and then push your push pin down into it so it'll hold it in place so it's easier to sew. General like disclaimer, like I don't freaking struggle this much to make my U parts usually, but trying to position this to where like you guys could see it in the video was difficult. So yeah, once you do that, you're just gonna press down the end of it and then try and tack down the part that you bent like as good as you can. So here's like a closer view of what I do. I just like take the needle, push it under the track, and then I take the thread and then put it over, like the extra thread, and put it over my needle so that I can create a knot. And then I'm just gonna do that a couple times in the corner to make sure it's like flat as possible, so we don't have any like lumps and bumps and all that. Even though I don't put this up in a ponytail, but I just don't want it there. Then you're gonna just do the same thing as you were doing before. Just gonna keep pushing the needle through the bottom of the track until you get to the push pin. Make sure you don't go through the track because it'll cause like shedding, and nobody wants that. Okay, so before we fold up the track over, but this time I'm gonna take the track all the way like up to the side of the wig cap. It's like over the the elastic band part of the track. I'm just gonna take my push pin and push it down to the top of that, because I'm not gonna go all the way up to the top where I have my leave out. I'm just gonna go over that elastic band. And when you're sewing over the elastic band, try not to like get it in like the actual elastic band, just go through the holes, because then if you get it in the elastic band, you won't be able to like tighten it or loosen it up. So I guess if you don't care about that, then just, you know, go for it. But if you want to be able to tighten and loosen up the wig cap, then make sure you just go through the holes. So at this point, I'm gonna create a knot since I got to the end of the track. So I'm just going to take my needle and push it through like usual, like through the bottom. Then I'm going to take my thread and wrap it around the needle 3 times. And then I'm going to just run the needle through, and that'll create a knot to kind of like tack down the end, because now we're going to fold over the track like we did before. Now you're just going to try and get that like end that you bent as flat as you possibly can. And then you're just going to take it and sew it all the way around and just do the same thing on the other side. You're going to sew up to the elastic band and then fold it down. Okay, so as you can see, one side is like significantly larger than the other one. So you're just going to keep laying your tracks in kind of like that curved shape that you were doing before, because you were laying the tracks by the elastic band, and you're just going to keep placing your tracks like in that same like setup until like the curve kind of gets small. Then you're just going to kind of like lay your tracks to where they fill up that curve. Like instead of going all the way up to the top and then keeping up with the curve, you're going to go to like the end of it and then like fold it over, so that essentially your tracks will lay straight, if that makes any sense at all. Hopefully it does. Alright, so by getting rid of that curve, I'm able to like lay my tracks down straight now. So I just kept laying them straight back and forth and just folding it over on each side, like all the way up until I got to the marker where my leave out would be. So I left like enough room for there to be able to put like one more track there. So I'm gonna grab my smallest bundle and I'm gonna measure out where my leave out is, and then I'm gonna cut a track to fit it there, and then I'm gonna sew it on. So like if you don't want to cut your tracks, I'm not really sure how you would do this. So yeah, you're just gonna do the same thing you did with the other tracks. Just take your needle and poke it through the end of the track, and then you're just gonna go under the wig cap and sew it on all the way around. Then you're just going to make another knot at the end by wrapping your thread around 3 times and pulling it through. So now you're going to start with your shortest bundle, and you're going to go on the opposite side and start sewing your tracks around. So since the side with your part is already filled up with hair, you're just going to sew your track all the way up until you can't really even sew it anymore, and then you're just going to fold your track over and, you know, tack down the end, try to get it as flat as possible like usual, and then you're just going to fold it over and then sew it back to the other end, and you're just going to keep doing that back and forth until you fill in that space. So you're just going to keep sewing until you completely fill up that gap that's left up there. Then you're going to flip that top track back and cut off all the excess weaving cap, and you should be left with something like this. You can go ahead and add clips to the top, or you can sew it onto your head, whatever you want to do. Usually I add clips because I like to switch my wigs out often. With this hair, it was not shedding, like pretty much barely any, while I was making this U-part. I'm used to a lot more shedding, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, so I'll be giving you guys an update about this hair soon. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.